Now that the 2018 NBA draft is over, I would like to give my thoughts on each lottery pick and also give grades for each lottery pick.
With the first pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the Phoenix Suns select DeAndre Ayton from Nassau, Bahamas, and the University of Arizona.
At Arizona, DeAndre Ayton averaged 20 points, 11.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists while shooting 61% from the field and 34% from three. Ayton was first on his team in offensive win shares, defensive win shares, defensive box plus minus, and second in offensive box plus minus. In the entire nation, he was 5th in field goals, 13th in field goal percentage, 13th in total offensive rebounds, 3rd in total defensive rebounds, 3rd in total rebounds, 6th in rebounding per game, 2nd in PER, 17th in effective field goal percentage, 8th in rebounding percentage, 14th in offensive rating, 3rd in offensive win shares, 5th in win shares, and 17th in box plus minus. Ayton's game is extremely comparable to Karl Anthony Towns and even a little bit like Joel Embiid. He's an absolute force on offense and can stretch out to the three-point line, but his defense is far from good. He's at best a below average defender right now, hence the Towns comparison, but he still has lots of potential on defense, hence the Embiid comparison. Now I'd give this pick an A. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this pick, but in my opinion, an A+ would be for a pick that I would consider a steal, and Ayton isn't a steal as everyone knew he was going to be the first pick. He's the best player in this draft, and he fits the Suns very well, which is why I'm giving it an A.
With the second pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the Sacramento Kings select Marvin Bagley III from Duke University.
In his lone season at Duke, Marvin Bagley averaged 21 points, 11 rebounds, and 1.5 assists, while shooting 61% from the field and 40% from three. Bagley was first on Duke in offensive win shares, and offensive box plus minus. He was second in defensive win shares and box plus minus, and 5th in defensive box plus minus. In the entire nation, he was 11th in field goal percentage, 5th in offensive rebounds, 9th in total rebounds, 9th in rebounds per game, 7th in PER, 13th in effective field goal percentage, 6th in offensive win shares, 7th in win shares, 11th in offensive box plus minus, and 19th in box plus minus. Bagley is an ultra-athletic big man who should be very good in the NBA. He can spread the floor and score inside very well, but he has lots of concerns as a defender. Similarly to Ayton, he really isn't that good as a defender. He does, of course, have a lot of potential, and at his best, he can definitely be a good defender. Now, I would give this pick an A. Again, just like Ayton, I feel like this was pretty predictable, as Doncic doesn't really fit the Kings roster that well, as they already have a lot of good, high-quality guards.
With the third pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the Atlanta Hawks select Luka Doncic from Ljubljana, Slovenia, and Real Madrid.
Doncic averaged 14.5 points, 5 rebounds, and 4.5 assists while shooting 46% from the field and 31% from three. Doncic was also awarded the MVP of his EuroLeague this past season while playing in the second best league in the world. Doncic is a great playmaker, and despite his shooting numbers, he is also a pretty solid shooter. I would give this pick an A+. I'm pretty high on Doncic, and I think the league he was playing in was harder than people think it is. Like I said, an A+ is if the team gets a steal, and I think this is a steal as Doncic has the potential to be the best player in this draft, and I think he's better than Marvin Bagley, who was selected one spot ahead of him.
With the fourth pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the Memphis Grizzlies select Jaren Jackson Jr. from Michigan State University.
Jaren Jackson Jr. averaged 11 points, 6 rebounds, and 1 assist while shooting 51% from the field and 40% from three. On Michigan State, he was 4th in offensive win shares, 1st in defensive win shares, 3rd in win shares, 4th in offensive box plus minus, 1st in defensive box plus minus, and 1st in box plus minus. In the entire nation, he was 5th in total blocks, 7th in blocks per game, 2nd in block percentage, 4th in defensive rating, 2nd in defensive box plus minus, and 2nd in box plus minus. Jackson might not have been the best player available at this pick, but he certainly has a very high ceiling. He's already a very good defender, and his offense might not be that good, but with his three-point shot, he'll at least be a solid offensive player, at least. I do expect him to be one of the best defending big men in the NBA for years to come, and I'd give this pick an A-. Similarly to the first two picks, it was pretty obvious that Jackson was going to be selected here. He fits the Grizzlies very well, and he has a lot of potential. While I think he's the best pick for the Grizzlies, I don't think he's the best player available. I think Trae Young and maybe even Wendell Carter are better players, but Jackson does have a lot more potential than Carter and almost as much as Young. Also, he fits a position of need while Young and Carter do not.
With the 5th pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Trae Young from the University of Oklahoma.
Trae Young averaged 27 points, 4 rebounds, and 9 assists while shooting 42% from the field and 36% from 3. Young was first on his team in offensive win shares, second in defensive win shares, first in win shares, first in offensive box plus minus, sixth in defensive box plus minus, and first in box plus minus. In the entire nation, Young was fourth in assists, first in turnovers, second in points, first in points per game, first in assists per game, 18th in PER, first in assist percentage, first in points produced per game, 10th in offensive win shares, first in offensive box plus minus, and 10th in box plus minus. Young, of course, has limitless range and great playmaking abilities, but he has some major weaknesses. He's incredibly turnover prone, but I think this is probably because none of his teammates were good enough to do much, and it's hard to say how good he'll be in the NBA, and at his best he could be Steph Curry, but at his worst I think he could be an absolute bust. I think he'll be a pretty good, probably a second option on a championship team, and I'd give this pick a B+. Young is incredibly talented, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being the best player in the draft, but I just think Bamba would have been a better pick. The reason it's still a B+ is because it is a toss-up between Young and Bamba, and the Hawks could have gone with either one. I think the difference is that Young has more talent right now. While he doesn't necessarily fit a position of need with Schroeder still in Atlanta, Schroeder has already asked to be traded, and Young could fill in nicely.
With the 6th pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the Orlando Magic select Mohamed Bamba from the University of Texas.
At Texas, Mo Bamba averaged 13 points, 10.5 rebounds, and half an assist while shooting 54% from the field and about 28% from 3. He was first on his team in offensive win shares, defensive win shares, and win shares, third on his team in offensive box plus minus, and first in defensive box plus minus and box plus minus. In the entire nation, he was fourth in total blocks, 12th in rebounds per game, second in box per game, 17th in PER, 12th in rebounding percentage, 3rd in block percentage, 12th in defensive rating, 7th in defensive box plus minus, and 14th in box plus minus. Bamba is arguably the most intriguing prospect in the draft. He's already a great shot blocker, and he isn't that bad on the perimeter on defense either. Offensively, he isn't as talented, but he does have lots of potential. He can shoot threes and he's okay inside, but once again, he can improve so much more. At his best, I think he can be the best defensive player in the league and a pretty good offensive player. Now, I'd give this pick an A. It's not an A+ because I don't think it's that much of a steal, as he didn't really slide down the draft that much, and I also think taking a point guard might have been better for the Magic. They already have Nikola Vucevic at center, but he is one of the most likely players to get traded this summer. The Magic don't really have a guy that can turn out to be a franchise talent, and I think it's better for them to go with a boom or bust type of player like Bamba rather than a guy like Wendell Carter, who's a much safer pick.
And now, with the 7th pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the Chicago Bulls select Wendell Carter Jr. from Duke University.
At Duke, Wendell Carter averaged 13.5 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists while shooting 56% from the field and 41% on 3. He was third on Duke in offensive win shares, first in defensive win shares, second in win shares, third in offensive box plus minus, first in defensive box plus minus, and first in box plus minus. In the entire nation, he was 20th in total offensive rebounds, 18th in total rebounds, 19th in PER, 14th in win shares per 40 minutes, 14th in defensive box plus minus, and 3rd in box plus minus. Now, Carter was overshadowed this year by his fellow frontcourt mate Marvin Bagley and is better than a lot of people think. He's a very good rebounder and even can stretch the floor nicely and will be a great fit with Lauri Markkanen, especially because Carter's defensive skills can mask Markkanen's defensive woes. I give this pick an A. I think a lot of people projected him to go 7th to the Bulls, so it's not a steal in my opinion. It fits a position of need as the Bulls already have a point guard, shooting guard, and power forward, and it's too early in the draft to take a wing.
With the 8th pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Colin Sexton from the University of Alabama.
In his lone season at Alabama, Colin Sexton averaged 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 3.5 assists, while shooting 45% from the field and 36% from 3. He was first in on Alabama in offensive win shares, fourth in defensive win shares, first in win shares, first in offensive box plus minus, second in defensive box plus minus, and second in box plus minus. In the entire nation, he was 14th in total free throws made. Now, Sexton's a pretty solid defender and an extremely talented athlete. He's a very good scorer, with most of his points coming off of drives to the paint. He's only an average three-point shooter at this point, but of course he does have lots of potential to improve. I'd give this pick a B+. Sexton was probably the best player available at this point, but I just think that if LeBron leaves, it'd be better to have a boom or bust guy like Michael Porter or even Kevin Knox, as he has more potential than Sexton. Still though, this looks like the right pick, and that's why I gave it a B+.
With the 9th pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Kevin Knox from the University of Kentucky.
On Kentucky, Kevin Knox averaged 15.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists, while shooting about 45% from the field and 34% from 3. Out of 9 players on Kentucky who played at least 225 minutes, he was second on Kentucky in offensive win shares, second in defensive win shares, second in win shares, fourth in offensive box plus minus, eighth in defensive box plus minus, and seventh in box plus minus. Knox is a really good scorer and already a pretty average defender, and most of all though, he's only 18 years old and turns 19 just this summer. He has tons of potential because of this. Now I'd give this pick a C. This is probably the most controversial pick of the draft. A lot of people think that Knox isn't deserving of the 9th pick. Personally, I think that Knox is one of, if not the most underrated player in this draft. I don't really agree with this pick, as I think Mikal Bridges, Miles Bridges, or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would have been a much better pick. Still though, Knox has tons of potential and does fit a position of need, hence why the grade is still a C.
With the 10th pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the Philadelphia 76ers select Mikal Bridges from Villanova University.
In his final season at Villanova, Mikal Bridges averaged 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists, while shooting 51% from the field and 43.5% from 3. Amongst the 8 players on Villanova who played at least 400 minutes, Bridges was second in offensive win shares, first in defensive win shares, first in win shares, first in offensive box plus minus, second in defensive box plus minus, and first in box plus minus. In the entire nation, he was 18th in three-point percentage, 20th in effective field goal percentage, 8th in offensive rating, 4th in offensive win shares, 3rd in win shares, 4th in offensive box plus minus, and 4th in box plus minus. Now Bridges is the perfect 3-and-D wing in the NBA. His three-point shot is already elite, and his defense is also likely going to be elite. Now this is the perfect guy for the 76ers, which is why I really don't understand trading him, but I'll get into that in a future video. Just looking at the draft pick though, it's a fantastic pick. He fits a position of need and he's the best player available. Now I'd give this pick an A. Similarly to the first few picks, this was pretty predictable, so that's why it is not an A+.
11th pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Hamilton, Canada, and the University of Kentucky.
From Kentucky, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander averaged 14.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists, while shooting 48% from the field and 40% from 3. Amongst the 8 players on Kentucky who played at least 400 minutes, Gilgeous-Alexander was first in offensive win shares, first in defensive win shares, first in win shares, first in offensive box plus minus, 5th in defensive box plus minus, and first in box plus minus. Gilgeous-Alexander is an absolute freak of an athlete, standing at 6'6" with a ridiculous 7-foot wingspan. This instantly gives him the potential to be an absolute incredible defender. He's already a pretty good passer, a solid scorer, and a solid defender as well. He's very physically similar to Dejounte Murray, who has used his wingspan and height to make it to the all-defensive second team in only his second season in the NBA. Now I'd give this pick an A. Again, it's a pretty standard pick, and I think a lot of people saw this coming. He fits a position of need as the Clippers don't have a point guard signed past this next season, and he'll be a great long-term piece.
With the 12th pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the LA Clippers select Miles Bridges from Michigan State University.
Miles Bridges averaged 17 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists while shooting 46% from the field and 36% from 3. Amongst all players on Michigan State who played at least 400 minutes, Bridges was second in offensive win shares, first in defensive win shares, second in win shares, first in offensive box plus minus, sixth in defensive box plus minus, and fifth in box plus minus. Bridges is a phenomenal athlete and can get to the rim with ease. He's a solid shooter, but nothing special. He's not the best defender, but his athleticism lets him have the potential to be a great defender in the future. Now, I'd give this pick a B-. I'm a little surprised that they didn't go with Porter here, as I think he fits their team much better and in general is just the better pick. If the Hornets are going to trade Kemba Walker, then getting a player with the highest ceiling is probably the better move, but if they try and continue to compete, then I think Bridges is a great pick as he's the best player available. However, Kemba is going to be traded most likely, so Porter would have been the better choice in my opinion as he could have been a franchise player at the 12th pick.
The 13th pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the LA Clippers select Jerome Robinson from Boston College.
At Boston College, Jerome Robinson averaged 21 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 3 assists while shooting about 49% from the field and 41% from 3. Amongst the 7 players on Boston College that played at least 250 minutes, Robinson was first in offensive win shares, third in defensive win shares, first in win shares, first in offensive box plus minus, 7th in defensive box plus minus, and 3rd in box plus minus. Robinson is a great scorer, which should transfer to the NBA, and he's also a pretty good playmaker as well. Still though, I just don't see the point of this pick. I'd give this pick a D+. The Clippers have already drafted Gilgeous-Alexander, and with this pick, they now have 6 guards capable of minutes. Milos Teodosic, Pat Beverly, Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Will, Austin Rivers, and now Jerome Robinson are all worthy of minutes at either guard position. They do, however, need a big, and since no bigs were really available then, they could have traded down and acquired an asset and still gotten a player of need. Even if they couldn't trade down, Porter would have been a much better pick. I don't see Robinson finding a role on this team right now, and I think that could hurt his development in the long run.
14th pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the Denver Nuggets select Michael Porter Jr. from the University of Missouri.
Now this pick by the Nuggets is by far the most difficult to evaluate. On one hand, the Nuggets might have just gotten the best player in the draft, but on another hand, they might have just wasted a pick on someone who will never play because of injuries. It seems like everyone is going crazy and saying how this is already the steal of the draft by far, but I really don't think so. I think it could become the steal of the draft, but not yet. There's a reason that he slid down so far when he was projected to go anywhere from pick 2 to pick 8. I think his injury is more severe than people think, and it could cause him to never play in the NBA. Still though, I'd give this pick an A-. Even though I just said all those negative things about Porter and his injury, I still do like this pick a lot. Without this pick, the Nuggets are probably never going to be a championship team, mainly because after they sign Jokic to a max contract, re-sign Will Barton, and eventually re-sign Jamal Murray, they will have no cap space to operate with. They really don't have a shot at anyone in free agency for the foreseeable future, and that's why I love this pick. Yeah, they could have taken Zaire Smith, a much more safer prospect and someone I quite like, but what would that get them? The 3rd or 4th best team in the West and a probable second round exit. If the Nuggets want to win, they would take a risk and take Porter, which they would. And that's why I really like this pick. So those are my thoughts on each lottery pick in the 2018 NBA Draft. Leave a like if you've enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and comment down below what you think was the biggest steal of the draft.